So just over a year ago, we set up a limited company, Scripps, and Scripps would trade through 2 websites. The first was set up as a pilot study called studyskills.com. The second was our main brand, which would be the Digital Training Company. Now, 3 or 4 months in, we decided we wanted to commission a pilot study. We wanted to fund a pilot study into what would have targeted a cohort of about 1 billion people. That was a simple intervention with binary outcomes. It's either going to work or it isn't. And it would have targeted dyslexia, ADHD, and early onset Alzheimer's. Now, if you imagine a Venn diagram, and you imagine each of those groups is represented by a circle, and those 3 circles intersect. Now, the intersection point would be working memory, focus, and attention, because that's attributes that they all share. So that's what we wanted. We wanted to fund a pilot study to see how our program, our practice, impacted those particular conditions. As we said, there were binary outcomes. It would either work or it didn't. However, 4 months passed, and eventually we got the results back. We were unsuccessful, which is okay. It's competitive. It was an innovation grant. However, I was disappointed by the reason that the panel, they claimed that they hadn't even looked at the site. They hadn't bothered to visit what was already a shovel-ready project. It was ready to go. I'd already hived off the study skills site, which would have been a separate pilot study. Now, this wasn't the first time this has happened. This has happened several years before. It does feel sometimes like maybe it's a culture of denial that if you discover something, then you have to do something. You have to. If it's a simple intervention, and you failed to implement that, then the blame shifts back onto you. Now, I was also annoyed because I've personally invested a lot of time in getting this shovel ready. Now, the advice and by all the experts in the field is that you shouldn't invest your money in advertising. You should spend your time and your effort on making the product, the service, as easy to use and implement as possible. So we did that. We invested in a piece of software that's used by Fortune 500 companies to deliver their training. We put this training online inside an LMS, which is a learning management system. We made sure that this was a short program. You could complete it inside a day. It was a 3-hour training program based around feedback loops. We ensured that it was written in relatively well. We weren't dumbing things down. It was written in simple, easy to understand language. We felt like we'd done our part. Now the idea again was very straightforward. If you can internalize more information and you can hang on to that information for longer, and we're talking about 24 hours, 48 hours a week. We're not talking about short-term gains here. We're not looking for a quick fix. This is a long-term outcome. Then you allow incubation to happen. You think of information as pieces on a chessboard. Now, during incubation, you start to move those pieces around. You start to take pieces away and recombine pieces with other pieces. It's about the connection between those pieces, about the spaces on the board. Now, the more pieces you can add to the board, the more connections you can make. It's exponential. And that increases your chance of having those clarifying insights which aren't obvious, which aren't intuitive. This is what if you move up the food chain, this is what you're paid for. You're not paid to do the easy stuff. People aren't investing in you because you are organized and disciplined. Now, how do we achieve that? Well, this isn't a substitution. We're not looking to radiate bad to average. Schools do a good job of that. And this isn't a modification either. That would be study drugs, smart drugs, Adderall, Ritalin, Modafinil. Now, their job is so that you present the best you on any given day. But they're still working within the system. They focus on working memory, attention, and focus. It has been described as, there's a quote by Samuel Broder, why are we looking to medicate kids with the chemical kosh, medicate adults in certain circumstances, why are we putting blinkers on people? It's kind of like building the best iron lungs in the world when you should be investing in the vaccine that eventually cured polio. That's where you should be looking. And this isn't a augmentation. Microsoft's Hollow Glasses, Facebook's Oculus Rift, other innovators in the field of VR, and they're the content producers. Now, this is obviously the future because VR content is immersive. And it has a few applications, but it hasn't reached critical mass and it's expensive. Where we are is we're a fundamental redefinition of learning. This is about re-examining how you internalize the building blocks of thoughts. So rather than rote repetition, rather than relying on what essentially is a tape recorder of drill, which silos information, instead you look to activate something called cognitive reserve. You look to use another part of the brain, which is studies have clinically proven to will buy you time, will allow you to internalize more information and hang on to it for longer. And as we've shown before with the chess analogy, that increases the number of connections you can make, increases the number of clarifying insights that you're going to have, increases your productivity. You can think of this as a language that can't be written down, a language that can't be spoken. This is a language of pure thought, the machine code of the brain, tapping into that. Because we're not born with language. We acquire language.